talking a little bit about some input costs and what kind of the bottom line looks like this year for our major Ohio row crops, because that will certainly influence what's going to happen with Ohio cropland values and cash rents as we move further into 23 and then look forward to 24, and how those negotiations may take place. This is an ongoing project, obviously a work in progress, if you will, as we evaluate all the different costs that may influence the bottom line and returns to Ohio crops for this year. Many of these are already set as growers purchase inputs earlier and earlier each year, each crop year, each production period. But as we evaluate some of the things, we look forward into 23, we're looking at seed costs to be a little bit higher this year. Right now, we're plugging in about a 5% higher seed costs for all of our major commodity crops: corn, soybeans, and wheat. Diesel price, this and the whole energy complex continues to trend a little bit lower as we move further and further into the winter due to a number of supply and demand features. But right now, we're plugging in $4 per gallon for diesel for the farm gate price. Crop protection chemical costs. This is a mixed bag as we look at all the different crop protection chemicals that most of our growers use throughout Ohio. Some of these products are going to be a little bit lower, while some are going to be a little bit higher this year. So right now we're plugging in a flat cost. Fertilizer prices, these are also trending lower as we move into the winter, further into the winter, somewhat due to lower demand both in North and South America from all the way back through from last summer through now, but also some of this is due to better supply chain issues globally. Machinery and equipment repairs, this is going to be the big jump for most farmers throughout North America, well, globally, I would say, as we still are unwinding from some of the supply chain issues that have affected us going back to COVID. And so we're plugging in about 20% higher costs for machinery and equipment, and also parts. And availability still continues to be an issue for some of those parts and some equipment, but we're starting to see a little bit more freedom of movement of some of this product, and also some of those important components that we're missing in the manufacturing process. It's not a problem that's completely solved yet, as we talk to some of those folks in that particular sector, but it's going to be a big jump for most farmers that are going to be trading in equipment for new. So as we look at all the crops, or all the things that are important, our cost structure that we build into our enterprise budgets is not going to be yours, obviously. So be sure to put your own numbers together as you start to budget and start to plan for the 23 year. Hopefully you've already started that process. But right now, as we look at the fall delivery of corn in Ohio, we're considering about a 20-cent negative basis. So $5.70 per bushel corn. Some areas of Ohio, you're going to have better basis, so your price point is going to be a little bit higher. The 184, that's trend yield for Ohio, throughout Ohio. So some areas are going to be a little bit better than that as we look at a normal year. So you may have somewhere closer to the 220 yield scenario. If we look at all of our costs, all of our returns, we're not figuring on any ARC PLC payments. Chris is going to talk more about those government payment prospects later. But our returns above variable costs are still reasonable. Returns above total costs, and that's including all the overhead, including operator labor and management. This is where it starts to look a little bit more like break even. Okay, so again, your costs are going to be a little bit different than ours. So soybeans, if we go to the next page here, looks to be a little bit better in terms of that profit scenario for this year as we see it right now. This price has moved up here in the last couple of weeks, whereas January it was moving much lower. We're plugging in about $14.50 per bushel for soybeans for this fall delivery at 57 bushel beans, or a higher yield scenario closer to 70. You know, profitability looks reasonable, returns to variable costs, and this is assuming a no-till production system for soybeans. Looks to be a little bit better than our conservation tillage corn scenario. Returns above total costs are actually positive for both the trend and the higher yield scenarios. So soybeans, moderately good prospects at this point. Wheat at $7.60 per bushel for trend line wheat. It comes in third amongst all three of our major row crops in Ohio. However, what we don't include here is any straw return or any double crop soybean return, which is becoming more typical on most of our crop acres in Ohio. So this is going to look a little bit better for those of you who are raising double crop soybeans. So comparing all three, you can see the three together in one chart here. $5.70 corn, $13.50 soybeans, and $7.60 wheat. Those are our price points right now for this fall. For 23 crops, you may have some different scenarios built in, but you can see how they all compare. Soybeans looking to be slightly better in terms of this production system that we have in place and our costs that we're assuming for 23. So all overall, not a terrible outlook, but also not anything that we're looking at a lot of windfall profits for this 23 crop year.